Hey, friends, I'm Otis Gibbs, and this is my buddy Kenny Vaughan. He's going to talk about the night that Marty Stuart and his fabulous Superlatives gave an all time great performance on the David Letterman Show.
I'd played that show quite a few times before that day. I know that. That wasn't my first time on Letterman. So I was pretty, I knew the guys in the band. And I was not terribly nervous that day, unlike some shows. I felt, for playing Letterman, I felt like I was pretty relaxed that day. And it was glad I was, I always talked to Sid, the guitar player. And he and I we would always talk shop. I go over and look at his stuff, and they're nice people, the guys in that band, and always friendly and accommodating. And you never see Letterman on that show. He just doesn't really, come around very much. The first time he ever said anything to me was when I played with Lucinda Williams on there one time, and he was walking by. The song was, the last chord is dying out, and he comes by to say goodnight and say hello to Lucinda, say goodnight, ladies and gentlemen. He walked by me and he turns and says, "Pretty good gig, huh?" I said, "Yes, sir." And so, hey, he spoke to me. Yeah, the lowly guitar player. I was like, all right. That made me feel good, But anyway, that day with Marty, it was, we did the camera blocking rehearsal, when we run the song a couple of times for the camera. And the first time we launched into it, the female guitar player, I can't think of her name, she was kind of like, she said, "Yeehaw," and started doing this like kind of like buck dance kind of impersonation, and I couldn't really tell if she was making fun of us or if she was just being funny. I didn't know. And I think that maybe somebody else in the band may have thought that she was making fun of us, but I don't know. It didn't matter, whatever. And then we played it again, and pretty soon all the band's standing there watching us, like they come around closer. And we ended the song, and they all clapped, and the guitar players both came over, and they were like, "Where are your pedals? Where's your pedals?" And I was like, "We don't really need them for this, we just have two little Fender amps and our guitars, and there's a tuner, And they were like, "We never see anybody just plug in like that. What's how do you get that sound like that?" And I was like, "Well, you use the right amp, and it's an old amp. It sounds good, And they were like kind of like scratching their heads, like, "Wow, you guys are whoa, that's serious,
You guys were ripping on that show too. I think it's one of the top 5 performances I've ever seen on Letterman.
Well, thanks. We had a good time. It was, we were out playing lots of shows, and we were, as they say in the industry in Nashville, road hot. We probably played, quite a few dates leading up to that, little thing in New York City there.
So did you have your own back line there when you?
Yeah, we were traveling on the road, and we had our stuff with us. Yeah.
What amp, if you remember, were you playing?
I was playing through one of my early '70s Princeton reverbs with a Alnico speaker installed, and Todd Sharp over at Nashville Amp Service keeps those amps running perfectly. There's something about Fender amps from the the 50s, 60s, and early 70s that they just sound great. You don't really need to do anything other than keep them running properly and make sure you have a good speaker. That's a big thing. I don't particularly care for the speakers that they were using from about 1962 on. So I take them out and put something I like better in, something I think sounds better. So
what was Marty playing through that night?
He was playing through probably either a Princeton or probably more likely a deluxe reverb from the early 70s with a Jensen a high quality Jensen speaker installed, and also had probably gone to Todd Sharp for service.
Didn't you have something to do with Marty going to smaller amps somewhere along
Yeah, I did. Yeah. Well, everybody did. We all kind of, I kept, you know, I tried everything. I had big amps because he was playing so loud. He had two twin reverbs, and he downsized from four. When I started playing with him, he was only using two, and it was just loud and like, I'm like, it was. I knew what he was going for, and he wasn't getting it. He wasn't getting what he wanted, but he was trying. And a lot, bluegrass musicians that start playing acoustically and then they move to electric always sort of seem to, it takes them a while to figure it out, how to, make it work. Because it's not easy sometimes to play loud and make it sound good. And I grew up playing electric guitar, and I was always way more gear savvy. When I used to, go to Grateful Dead shows when Pigpen was still in the band. I never saw the Dead after Pigpen died. I never saw the Dead without Pigpen, but I saw him a lot. And I used to, walk around in the back and look at Jerry's, what pedals he's playing through and what, what's going on? Why does his guitar sound so good? And I saw Jimi Hendrix and Eric Clapton and all the great guitar players when I was, still a teenager in the 60s, and all these people, blues guitar players, a lot of that stuff. I saw Helen Wolf when I was 14, and I just kind of like always was trying to make my amp and guitar sound good like theirs did, so I would sit in the basement for hours and mess around with shit, just try and get that sound,
So
Well, we're pretty loud still. Compared to other bands, we're not loud, maybe, especially for that period. Now bands all are using in-ears and they're not even using real amps. They're playing through the, like these modeling amplifiers that go through the, in-ears. And the only thing that you really hear when you stand on the side of the stage is the drummer, And he's like, well, where's the sound coming from, And the amps are just props, But we don't do that. But back to what your question about Marty's thing, I think that, in the studio, he realized that his Fender Twin wasn't giving him what he wanted. And he started, I was like, try your deluxe, man, play that thing. And we were in LA one time and we were using rental gear, and they had this one early 70s deluxe reverb. And I plugged into it and I said, ooh, Marty, play through this one today. And he bought the amp from SIR in Hollywood. They didn't want to sell it to him. He said, I got to have this amp. And that's still his number one amplifier. So that was probably the amp he was playing through on Letterman. It's still his favorite amp. There's something about that one that's extra special. And, because they're all a little bit different. And they're hand wired, And so he still sends it to the guy at SIR for repair. He doesn't want anybody else to repair it. So he takes the amp out of the cabinet, and boxes it up and sends it to LA. I mean, like many times on the road, we'll the road manager's going to UPS to overnight it to LA and then picks it up 2 days later in a different city at the hotel, and I'll go up on the bus and he's putting the amp back in the case, he's got his drill and back into the cabinet, That's, that's just the way he is. I carry spares, but Marty does too, but he can't live without that amplifier. Yeah, well, we've all been on there before. Marty's played there even sitting in with a band, by himself there, so I felt like maybe, he knew who we were, and he's probably, that's an entertaining little number. There's a lot of good visual sight gags with the double harmonized guitar stuff, and the kind of, it's an up-tempo, happy, party piece kind of. So,
You guys.
It was probably refreshing from some of the shoegazer bands they get on there and some of the more pretentious artists, where ours was free of pretension, just kind of clowning around, having a good time playing good old country music, up tempo, and you know, picking some hot licks, you know, and singing some harmony, and you know, and it's a good little tune. Don Reno, man, he wrote that song. It's a great song, country boy rock and roll. You know, Reno and Smiley. You know, Don was, you know, the banjo player in Reno and Smiley, but he was a monster guitar player. Holy shit. He was like one of the great guitar players in bluegrass.
If you enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more like it, subscribe to my channel, click the like button, and tell me down below what your favorite Marty Stuart song is, and I'll see you somewhere down the road. Much love to you.